Welcome to Open Arms, an honest conversation about firearms. Hey everyone, I'm your host Brian Lockerman. How you doing over there, Nikki?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Hey Nikki, again, what do? We go to an event and we meet some good people again, correct?
We always do.
Every time we're out and about at these events, we find more and more like-minded people like us. And today on the show, I have Mike Koslow running for Congress. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, and it's good to be here today, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. It was a pleasure meeting you the other night. Everything you were telling me that night, I was just like, oh, you have to be on the show. You have a very, very extensive resume. I love what you were telling me. Can you just tell the people exactly like what district you're running for, what's going on with your political career?
Sure, my pleasure. Right now, I'm running for the Congressional District 26, which includes Ventura County and part of West LA County, essentially from Ventura all the way over to Calabasas.
Sounds good. Now, prior to that, though, what led you into politics?
Well, I've been involved in politics one way or another since the time I was 18 years old. I joined the Air Force at 17 years old and actually was working under B-52s and
Really?
F-4s in a variety of different places as an avionics technician. So it was very, very exciting. Got to travel quite a bit. And then I started moving into the leadership realm. We called it a green rope and a red rope, very, very rudimentary and fundamental leadership skills. But it really got me interested in being able to go ahead and learn more about being able to effectively influence people and align with their mindset and their ideologies and incorporate that as one particular function and being able to resolve issues. So as I grew and grew and grew, I ended up getting recruited into an organization called the Air Force Office of Special Investigations through the Air Force.
Oh, wow.
And was designated as a special agent working with the Air Force in a variety of different capacities, undercover narcotics, general crimes, as far as in-depth investigations, and even becoming a counterintelligence and working in counter-espionage types of investigations over in Europe before the Berlin Wall came down, I might add. So lots of stories there. But moving on, after that, I moved into the white-collar crime realm, and again, being involved more in leadership positions, and becoming more familiar with the political structure and what it really takes from a congressional perspective to be able to go ahead and pass laws, appropriations, and sub-appropriations. And in the military, after, probably 30 years, I was honored to be selected by General Dennis Lucas, who was the California Air National Guard commander at the time, to become the California Air National Guard Command Chief Master Sergeant, overseeing about 4,700 personnel and
Really?
9 units throughout the state of California. And then also was selected to be on the Enlisted Field Advisory Council for the Joint Chiefs of Staff back in Washington, D.C. for a while. So a lot of leadership experience, exposure to congressional leaders. Also worked for the Department of Defense Inspector General's office, where I became more involved in high visibility public corruption as well as fraud investigations being prosecuted by the Department of Justice. So again, once again, getting a lot of involvement and engagement in a myriad of different areas in leadership and congressional knowledge. And now I sit on the Leadership Council for the National Small Business Association, advocating for small businesses nationwide.
Well, Mike, do you have any time to breathe?
I took a couple in between there.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, again, you briefed me on a lot of this stuff the other night, and I'm just like, no way. It was like amazing what you're doing. Now, obviously, you had firearm training through all your years, correct?
That is correct.
And how did you ever start in shooting a gun?
Oh my gosh, goes back to, I think I was 11 years old when my father first purchased my Marlin 22. I was excited about that, but had very definitive and distinct rules as far as being able to use it and only in the presence of a parent. That safety was a major component of that.
Perfect.
That carried all the way through my military training with different types of weapons and different types of arsenals. And even carried that through. When my son was going through Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, I was volunteered to go ahead and teach the different shotgun and rifle and handgun merit badges to be able to go ahead and emphasize safety.
That is fantastic. And see, right there, that's family values too, on top of that. And to be teaching everybody safety like that, teaching your kids, you got taught as a kid too as well. There's not going to be any careless accidents. I feel bad for, people that didn't grow up like us. We kind of grew up in the same realm. I grew up back east too as well. The orchards, getting my first 22 at like 9 years old or whatever. And, again, like Nikki here, she grew up, in the San Fernando Valley. She never really knew what guns were, right, Nikki?
I didn't know what guns were. No, then.
No, she
Of
did. She,
course, I knew what they were,
well,
but I
yeah,
never shot any.
but she didn't. She never had any type of safety training or what they're really about. Until now, of course. And it totally, completely changed her outlook and her mind on everything because of that. And that's what we do with a lot of our classes too. We have, we do safety training is key. That's what our show's all about. Safety, family, and the Second Amendment. And again, what you just told me, what your past was, and doing that Boy Scout thing, that is fantastic stuff. I love hearing that.
And it carries over as well. I've seen, unfortunately, some accidents occur. Even when I went through the Federal Firearms Instructors Training course for the Department of Defense for about probably 7 to 8 years, maybe a little more, I was teaching different federal agents how to, in different agencies, I might add too, how to go ahead and handle and how to go ahead and effectively shoot different types of weaponry, everything from rifles and machine guns, fully automatic weapons, to handguns, different types of handguns. But the most predominant emphasis that we always placed on it, and we spoke about this for quite a while before we actually went out on the range, was gun safety.
There you go.
Gun safety. It was all about gun safety. And unfortunately, you had some carelessness and people that weren't paying attention, and it happens. Complacency, and that's where I think a lot of accidents happen, is that we do get complacent and we don't emphasize that proficiency on a reoccurring basis, and it's important. But I do distinctly remember that when we were training and teaching our students, that we always emphasized that the majority of accidents that we saw involving children, unfortunately and horrendously, was the fact that the familiarity with handling weapons.
That is it. That's it right there. You said the key thing right there. We emphasize on, if you're going to have firearms in your home, you train your kids on the firearms. You tell them to respect it. You teach them not to touch it. You have them locked up safely, of course, as well. On top of that, yeah, we don't like to hear careless accidents. A lot of police officer friends of mine and firefighter friends, and they say that the worst calls they will go on is a careless accident with a firearm in a home. And we're trying to stop that, and that's what our message is all about. And you know what, Mike? It's working. I mean, we're barely even on the air for the show, but this podcast, we're getting emails that have been so amazing about people saying that they're listening to us and they're getting that safety training. They're not just going to throw their loaded gun in the bed. That's what we're trying to do. Let's keep America safe because, we love our Second Amendment. We want to make it a safe environment.
And very good point, Brian. And you brought up a good memory of mine, that as my children were growing, I still recognize the lack of responsibility sometimes of being a young child.
Oh,
And
yeah.
You're not going to listen to your parents, and we all know that very well. And taking that into consideration because of the horrific events that I was involved in and saw many times over and heard involving children and accidental discharges, on really unfortunate ones.
Yeah.
What it came down to is I would go home. I always carried a weapon with me, obviously, in my official capacity as a federal agent. And one of the things that I always did because of that, I always broke the weapon down. I removed the slide, put them in different places, and the ammunition was always locked up. Even put a trigger guard on it in addition, just to make sure, because as children do, they will be curious and they're going to look for things. So keeping that in mind, I went to the extra length, even though it's not required, went to the extra length to make sure that it wasn't inaccessible and that they didn't have that knowledge and sophistication and proficiency at putting it back together again.
That's very good practice. That's really good. Good to hear that again. I like everything you're saying about that. Very good. Okay, so obviously, you're supporting the Second Amendment with your campaign at Congress, correct?
I am.
Okay, that's fantastic. Of course, we need more guys like you in office. That's for sure. We need to bring our country back to where it was. And what else are you trying to do with your campaign? What getting in office? What would you do?
Well, one of the key things, as it relates to the Second Amendment, is ensuring that we are a constitutional republic.
Mm-hmm.
The constitutional is the guiding light for what has made this. Now, we haven't been a perfect society by any stretch. We are the experiment, as they said back to Benjamin Franklin, and it's continually growing. We have improved. We have gotten better. But from a basic fundamental perspective on the Constitution and the Second Amendment specifically, which was pretty much authored by James Madison, back during that time frame, the late 1700s, 1787, I believe, and talking about the Federalist Papers that he wrote on Federalist Paper 29, specifically talks about the right to bear arms and that it shall not be infringed. But one of the things that I want to talk about is the simple fact is that when you're looking at the Second Amendment, it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and it's to protect the state. It's
That's
to
it.
protect the state from the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they recognized that because of what happened. That was the whole predicate for the Declaration of Independence, is because taxation without representation, and the simple fact is that the colonists were not being treated equitably and fairly. So, as a part of that, the Second Amendment basically says that we have the right to raise a militia. Militia is the citizen soldier.
Yep.
And as a part of the California Air National Guard, as I mentioned, and running that from the enlisted perspective for so many years, we have people that are ingrained in different walks of life, from artisans, plumbers, all the way up to individuals that are politicians and senior representatives and CEOs for major companies and corporations that are relatable within their civil function in civil society. But they also make a volunteer an election to serve their country, and sometimes the ultimate sacrifice, where they lose their lives.
Yeah.
That all being said, the Second Amendment is important because it also differentiates between the militia and that you're not forced to have to go in the military. That's the interesting thing about the Federalist Papers number 29, is that it specifically talks about you have a militia, but you're not forced to go into that militia if you don't. But it distinguishes that you still can own a firearm.
There you go.
And there's many laws out there. Back in 1939, I believe it was, the United States Supreme Court ruled in a case called U.S. versus Miller that there's two different concepts. One is an individual rights philosophy, and then also a collective rights philosophy. And in 1939, they went with the collective rights philosophy because of the fact that there were sawed-off shotguns. So they're saying that that was not necessary to maintain or to enhance a militia. But then almost 70 years later, and we're seeing that more and more predominantly as these different cases come up over the last, probably 6 to 7 years, that it's moving more towards the individual rights
Yeah.
concept, where individuals, such as in Chicago, New York, they just have these outright bans on individuals and citizens being able to own a firearm within the city limits. The different courts have ruled overwhelmingly, in many cases, that is not permissible under the Second Amendment, that people do have a clear right to own a firearm.
Okay, so I got a question for you. I've always said that too. The Second Amendment to me is federal. It's the entire country. How can states regulate the Second Amendment on their own? And that's legal to do?
Well, there are three very good question. There are three specific exemptions, if you will, and they're common sense, and that's what the emphasis is by the courts on the federal level, where the cases have gone from the states through the appellate courts all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the most predominant, I'll bring one of those three up, which talks about as far as delinquency, juvenile delinquents. There is a prohibition against juvenile delinquents having firearms for obvious reasons, and there are other prohibitions against that too, but those are common sense.
Yeah.
But everything else is at the federal level. Clearly, the federal level and the United States Supreme Court is the ruling arbiter of whether or not there's an infraction of citizens' rights to be able to bear arms and maintain those. The states do have a right to regulate, but if it infringes, and there's the key, if it infringes on that right, that's where it rises to the level of a violation of the Second Amendment, in my personal opinion.
Well, my personal opinion is that most of the stuff they do pass infringes my right.
Yes.
I mean, look at our state here. I mean, they infringe our right every day. You know, they threw that big giant tax on guns the other day again. It just keeps going and going and going. They're doing everything they can to stop us from owning a firearm.
I don't think a tax increase is going to stop a criminal.
Yeah, exactly.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a good one, Nick. It's true.
Good point. And we know that criminals don't follow the laws and rules, and they will find a
Exactly.
way
I
to go
know
ahead. With the micro stamping that's even being discussed right now, how is that going to stop a criminal
It's
from being able to, to steal a weapon and then use that
Yeah.
weapon in the
Most of the
commission
time,
of a crime?
most of the time they're stolen anyway.
Right.
They don't go background check. Okay, I'm going to go commit a crime now.
Exactly.
And that goes to a whole different issue as far as incarceration and no cash bail, and it kind of gets off the topic, but the enforcement of laws, and that's what it really boils down
Yeah,
to.
that's
Not
true.
basically restricting the rights of law-abiding citizens.
That's true. You know, everything you just talked about, this is stuff that should be taught in our schools. This is stuff that should be more, focused on than some of the crap they're teaching our kids today. Let's get back to this. Let's get back to our country. Let's get back to what we stand for. You know what I mean? Some of the things that have just been irritating me is removing the Pledge of Allegiance out of a classroom. It's been so. I haven't heard the Pledge of Allegiance in so long living out here. And when we went to the first meeting of the VCGO, the Ventura County Gun Association, we went there and they opened the day up with a Pledge of Allegiance. And I was just like, oh my God, it feels so great to hear that again. Why are they doing this to our schools? Why are they just taking away from our kids? Teach them about America. Teach them about the amendments. Teach them about the Constitution. I bet you can ask, Nikki, what do you think? You can ask kids today, what is an amendment? What is the Constitution? How many states do we have in our country? They don't know these questions.
No, it's a good point. Matter of fact, I've talked with my colleagues quite a bit, and we discuss, Mike, as a business owner, what kind of questions do you typically ask? You want to be able to have a high-performing team and people that are going to be able to effectively do the job. And just as an aside, I asked them, can you tell me, just as an aside, what 4 presidents are reflected in Mount Rushmore?
Oh, I know. I've heard
You
it.
get,
before,
and
too.
sometimes you get some very sharp people that can answer that. But for the most part, a lot of people will get the first 3, but not necessarily the last. Theodore Roosevelt. And it's interesting. But the point being is that you're absolutely right. We need to teach the fundamentals again, and we need to have organizations
That's it.
where parents, and there's where the parental influence comes in, the willingness that it is a village that it takes to raise a child in many cases. My son, I remember him when I was in Boy Scouts. My son would come up to me and go, "Dad, how come you spend more time with the other boys than you do with me?" Because you're learning so much more that I may not be able to go ahead and teach you from somebody else that has that same set of values, that same insight, as it relates to gun safety and many other types of issues. So really that's what it boils down to is, yes, we need to have an education process that, one, there's a significant parental influence, a positive parental influence,
Yes.
and we get back to core education and emphasizing that, because that's really what it comes down, making people competitive, making people so they can understand what our history is all about. So if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it from a negative perspective sometimes. But ultimately, that's what it comes down to. We've got to educate our young at an early age and do it in a way that makes them responsible as citizens. And part of that is gun safety.
There you go. And I hear a lot of parents that support what we're talking about right now are pulling their kids out of public school and taking them to homeschooling just so they can actually get a real education. That's what it's going to boil down to. Everybody's going to pull their kids out of public school because public schools are not really cutting it for us these days. It's sad. It really is. I mean, it's sad to think that younger generation is not knowing who we are, And that just irritates me. And again, that's part of my show. The whole thing with the family values. Family values to me is huge. And having that, I don't care if you're a single mom, single dad, or whatever, or maybe your grandparents raising the kid or something like that. Still, have that nightly dinner with them. Talk to them. Engage in them. Ask them what their day was like. Teach them. I just see that being lost.
And it's a big component. It really is. And that's the thing, is that I think social media has a big part.
Oh,
with
of
that.
course.
A significant part is that, How many times do you walk into a restaurant, and we used to laugh about this, is that you or your wife or your significant other are sitting there and you're talking and you're having a substantive conversation,
Uh-huh.
but you're looking around and you're seeing a lot of individuals sitting there. Matter of fact, the same table. We were just over at a local restaurant here about a week ago, and there was probably, oh my gosh, probably about 8 to 10 different young people sitting around the table and having, I think it was lunch, and they're all on their phone. None of them were having conversations with each
That's
other.
it.
And it was like the social skills that have diminished so much
Uh-huh.
over time. And I think we need to get back to that, though. And I think that creates a situation where when you do get in a situation where you try to have a conversation, a substantive conversation with somebody on maybe a topic issue, gun rights or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be, that you are immediately put on the defensive because you don't know how to argue, you don't know how to be able to ask the appropriate questions or relevant questions.
That's true.
That educate you
That is true.
and maybe influence you to think that maybe I had a different perspective or the wrong perspective on
Mhm.
it. And there's no right or wrong, maybe a different perspective.
Yeah.
But it at least gives you the opportunity to have that substantive conversation.
Absolutely. That's one of Nikki's biggest pet peeves.
I hate when he pulls out the phone when we're eating dinner.
No, not just. I'm talking
Oh.
about kids in general.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
You know, taking the. No, you're saying I do.
Uh-huh.
You do too. Don't give me. You know, I mean, here's the thing, Mike. I never dabbled in social media at all until we started our show and our podcast here, and nowadays you kind of have to have that for business. I mean, it's like almost essential because it's basically free advertisement. So, yeah, I do have occasions, look in the phone and see stuff like that. But I'm talking about kids in general. It's not that they're just doing for their business; they're doing everything else but socializing. With their friends or their parents or whatever. And that's what I was talking about, Nick, not me.
No, I'll share a story. I mean, in fact, one of the most predominant indicators of that with the youth is I think we went to Disneyland. My grandchildren live distant from me, so it's a rarity basically to be able to go ahead and really spend some quality time
Yeah.
with them, and you want to maximize that. So we went to Disneyland and we went out for dinner one night while we were there, and we're getting ready to go ahead and order. And first thing my granddaughter pulls out is her tablet, and she's looking at it and doing all kinds of things. And I said, "Please put that down." And she looked at me and she goes, "Grandpa." And I said, no, we're going to have some good quality time. We're going to have I want to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what you think. And it's not a test. I just want to know what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
And it was so foreign to her for a little while, and she really enjoyed it and appreciated it years later.
Well, good. That's good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, Nikki, no more pulling that phone out during dinner. No, that's all good stuff. I mean, everything you're talking about is seriously what we stand for and what we support. Okay, as far as your campaign now, what's going on with it? What are you doing? Is there a website? How do people get to read about you? How do they donate for your campaign? Where can they find you?
No, the campaign's going very well. Matter of fact, we've had
Good.
a number of events. We're interacting. I just recently, and thank you for asking, recently just received the official nomination from the California GOP
Oh, nice.
for my candidacy, in addition to the Ventura County Central Committee. So that was good news. Received also endorsements from other local Republican leaders as well here within the county. They can go ahead and contact me, and they donate. It does cost money to go ahead and get the word out and get the branding.
Of
and
course.
people to get to know me and who I am and what my background is. They can go to www.votemichaelkoslow.com.
All right, and Nikki will definitely put that in the description. Correct, Nikki?
Yes. All your information will be on the description box below, so they can just click on it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that'll give people an opportunity to really know you, right? Because it talks all about what you're doing, what you're standing for, what you're going to do, all that good stuff.
Get back to American values. That's the bottom line.
That's it.
Get
That's all.
back to
That's all we
American
want.
values and common sense.
That's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's what we need. That's what we need. Guys like you in office. We got to bring it back. No matter what it takes. Now, are you going to be like on the road doing different campaigns and different seminars and things like that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have a number of different events that are coming up. We're trying to work with a town hall meeting opportunity coming up. Don't have a specific date yet, but we're looking at different venues and different opportunities to be able to do that with here in the county.
Are you working with Tim McCarthy on that?
Tim McCarthy.
Yeah, Move the Needle.
No.
Okay, he just contacted me about they're doing a town hall event similar to that, and he wants our crew to go up there and do all the filming and stuff like that for it. Yeah. So
No, I'd be happy to go ahead and meet him and talk with him about that. As an
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. I should definitely put you guys together. His thing is called Move the Needle, and him and his wife put on so many different events and things like that. They do a lot for.
Fortunately, we got a lot of support within the community, all the way from Ventura, all the way over to Calabasas, and a number of folks have
Nice.
really stepped up and are willing to go ahead and support the campaign to be able to go ahead and bring back those common values and American values.
There you go.
That's what people are getting a little frustrated, a little tired of.
Oh yeah.
Of the contentiousness that we have, the finger pointing, and not really having any resolutions and solutions to be able to go ahead and address the issues that are affecting the American people and people here in Ventura and LA counties.
That is true. Now, as far as your events, they'll always be listed on your website, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so then people can go on the website, find your events, go check you out even live.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I highly encourage everybody to go do that. If you want a little bit of a change, and a significant change, I should say, and being able to go ahead and bring us back to the American family values, as far that, please come and support me.
There you go. What do you think, Nikki? Does he have
Love
our
it.
vote?
He has my vote.
He has my vote. That's for sure, 100%. Yeah, we'll do everything in our power too to help push your campaign as well. We'll throw it out on social media, and we'll get this show out there to people to start listening to as well. Because I think you have everything we want. That's for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure meeting you the other night.
You as well, Brian.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
as well. It was refreshing.
Yeah, it was nice. You know, it's nice. It's nice, especially in our area. You know, we're finding more and more though people like-minded like us as we keep doing these events and stuff like that. Because we always thought we were very alone, Nikki and I, and then it just start finding this person, introduce that person, that person, that person. Like, wow, there's that many people out here that's like us. This is fantastic.
It is. It is. The more you get out there, the more you talk to people, the more you realize the commonality.
Yeah.
And there's a distinction: is that you start with the common thread, and then work to the fringes and to the outsides to be able to go ahead and at least understand and educate yourself on perspectives, and don't necessarily immediately discount
Yeah.
everybody else's ideas. You may not agree with them, but you understand them, you respect them, and you respect each other. And there's the key that we're missing these days: is that degree of compromise and willingness to work together towards a common goal, and that's being an American.
That is it. That's very well said. See, I love it. You're perfect. You know what I mean? This is good stuff. All right, everybody, remember Mike Koslow for Congress. Go there. Go to the website. Check him out. Support him. Even just support. 50 cents, a dollar, $10, anything helps. Everything helps. You know, we got to get this guy in office. That's all there is to it, right?
Thank you so much, Brian.
All right. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. I want to definitely keep track of your campaign. Definitely want to bring you back in when things are moving even forward. I mean, after even the first of the year or whatever, just to get updates, and then let's get you in.
Well, very, very much so. And any volunteers that want to help out, we're always welcome.
Yeah.
And willing to go ahead and have them help out as well.
Always good volunteering. Trust me, it helps in a big way. It does. Well, Mike, thank you again. I love everything I heard today. It's fantastic stuff, and we'll help you get there.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right. Well, that's our show for today. And Nikki, where can they find us?
You can find Open Arms on Instagram, openarms.tv. And if you have any questions about today's show, you can send us a tweet at openarmsdt.
Thank you very much, guys. And always remember safety, family, and the Second Amendment. Have a good day.